Good morning. My name is Janelle Thompson. I'm the project manager here at Museum Hue. Thank you all for coming to our convening of our Building HueSpaces series. Building HueSpaces was intended to demystify how to design and build spaces for small and medium-sized nonprofits of color in New York City. Our convening today, Building HueSpaces, the legacy of Black communities built and sustained, focuses on the sustainability of arts and cultural organizations and the continued growth of our communities. I'm excited to introduce our first panel, Preserving Community. We'll hear from Jennifer A. Scott, Executive Director and Chief Curator of the Urban Civil Rights Museum in Harlem, Shelley Worrell, co-founder of I Am caribBEING and Little Caribbean, and Zulmilena Then, Preservation Manager at Weeksville and founder of Preserving East New York. The panelists will discuss how they each navigate the preservation of their organization, their immediate community, and the community at large. So first up, please, we'll have Zulmilena Then. I'm going to just briefly read the bio. As a native Brooklynite, grassroots organizer, and activist, Zulmilena Then works in various capacities to preserve her home community. As the preservation manager for Weeksville Heritage Center, she ensures the integrity and long-term preservation of the historic Hunterfly Roadhouses, the only remaining domestic structures of 19th century Weeksville. In 2015, she formed Preserving East New York, an organization focused on celebrating and elevating the voices of the predominantly Black and brown East New York community to make a real social and political change to protect the neighborhood through historic preservation. Please help me welcoming Zulmilena Then.
Thank you for the introduction. Welcome everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Gonna start. Okay, I don't think I've used this in a long time. Okay, cool. All right. So before I speak about preserving East New York and preserving Weeksville, I want to start with preserving Bed-Stuy. My story started as an architecture employee at 364 Stuyvesant Avenue, right in Bed-Stuy, and I was working for a Black-owned, community-oriented firm, which makes a difference when you're starting early in your architecture career. And, you know, the building was located in the Stuyvesant Heights. It's still located in the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. And being surrounded by these beautiful buildings, these brownstones, you know, walking around, being embraced by these magnificent buildings, you know, the brownstones, the Black people, the Bed-Stuy pride, the community, working with them to enhance their spaces. Like here I did, we updated the entrance of one of the churches to provide a accessible entrance, or like here updating the historic storefront so you can see the before and after, and just like, you know, in Bed-Stuy and being within the community and working alongside community, it made me realize how important historic buildings are in anchoring communities, especially Black and brown communities. And this sentiment like made me question, like, why isn't this feeling present in my East New York community? You know, it made me think about like, how many landmarks do we have? Do we even have landmarks? So working with Michael Ivanhoe McCall and his firm, and working with our neighbors to restore their brownstones and other institutional buildings, made me think about like, how can I bring historic preservation into East New York, and how do we create awareness about preserving our communities. So that's when, I started working in 2010, and in 2015, that's when I decided to start with my work preserving East New York while still being in the office. So from 9 to 5, I will work with Michael and my colleagues, and then from 5 to 9, I would do work with East New York. So in 2015, when I started questioning myself and what to do, I started looking at the neighborhood. And at this point, I was feeling the pressure of, what can we do to preserve our neighborhood? Because at this point this year, former Mayor de Blasio was talking about rezoning 15 neighborhoods, specifically 15 underserved communities throughout New York City, starting with East New York, which was going to be like the testing ground for the other communities. So in the image to the right, you see a new modern building and a picture of what used to be there, which was the East New York Savings Bank, located at Atlantic and Pennsylvania. It was a very prominent corner, and we thought that because the building was historical and was there for many years, we thought that it was going to be there forever, but it wasn't landmarked. So that same year, we received the news that there were demolition plans for the East New York Savings Bank. At the same time, former Mayor de Blasio was speaking about rezoning East New York. So in this East New York map, you see in the orange area what comprised the rezoning area, and then those blue dots, you see the existing landmarks that we had. And East New York is a very large neighborhood. It has more than 20,000 properties. And to think about, what the rezoning was going to cost, and that most of our community is not preserved, it made me feel like some sort of pressure to start this conversation in the neighborhood. So I started looking at, what we were going to miss, our culture, our colors, our community, and thinking about those losses made me feel that I had to start something, and that was preserving East New York, which is an advocacy group creating awareness about historic preservation. So within the rezoning process, we started doing our work, testifying at public hearings, showing up where community was showing up. We would gather at the East New York Farmers Market, meet with them, create community awareness events around historic preservation. We do walking tours, which there was one time where I went on Facebook and I saw someone write in one of the posts that we share about the walking tours, someone wrote, are you gonna be escorted by the police? And that felt like a gut punch, because that is the reputation that East New York has. And through historic preservation, we want to help, or it has helped us change that narrative through time. Just showing people within and outside the community what East New York is through our caring eyes, and just having them experience it with us from our perspective. And that's what the walking tours has allowed us to do over time. And we created heart bombing events, which is like an annual event that happens during Valentine's Day nationally, where we target a building, gather community, and we do paper crafts, cut, paper hearts. It's just a community event to, engage people with history in many different ways. There was a building that we lost in Brownsville, and we wanted to honor it through a funeral service. So we did that. We closed out the street, prepared the setting just like a funeral service in front of the demolished site, and gathered the past community that was Italian with the current community, Black community, and we just were there celebrating what the church had created, the neighborhood, the pride and the culture that was created around the church's legacy. The picture at the bottom left, that's members of Preserving East New York, and we are very intentional about who are the faces, because we want our community to see us within, when we show up, we want them to feel reflected. Sometimes with historic preservation, people feel that it's, for affluent white communities, and we want to make sure that by showing up, by showing ourselves, by being part of the community, that they feel that this is for them as well. With our community work, showing up at the East New York Farmers Market, we were able to involve people within a preservation campaign to landmark our 4th landmark building in East New York. And this building was landmarked 36 years prior to the 3rd landmark. So this was like something huge. In 2017, the Landmarks Preservation Commission felt that because the building was in jeopardy, because it sat on top of, within the rezoning area, and it was at risk because of the development rights that the site had now through the rezoning. The Landmarks Preservation Commission took an interest to only one particular building, which is the Empire State Building, an old manufacturing site, and is very peculiar in terms of its design, and also because it has 2 large tile murals, which are considered one of the largest of its, one of the largest murals, and by a company that no longer exists, and it's only the only one remaining throughout the United States. So it was exhilarating to learn about these special things about the building. But one of the things that really was helpful was to have the building landmarked after the rezoning was approved, because this was a turning point, or a point of an example to show why landmarks are important for our community. Because one of the reasons I started Preserving East New York was because I was trying to find a way to give our voice, to provide a voice for the community to have a say about what can happen, especially during the rezoning, where there was a lot of changes that were about to come. I thought about, can we use landmarks as a tool to preserve our neighborhood? So the Empire State Building, the landmarking of it, was an example to show why preservation is an effective tool, because when the building was preserved in 2017, in 2019, the architects came with the developer proposing the changes. They decided to build a building behind it. On the left side, you could see the initial proposal with white brick and certain design for the windows. And we felt very strongly about the design because this was the first development after the rezoning approval. And we explained to the architects that they were going to set the tone for, the other incoming development. So we wanted to make sure that they would do it right. And we asked them to change the brick color and to change the design of the windows because it resembled the prison facility in Manhattan. So as a community that has struggled with the worst reputation of being one of the worst neighborhoods or one of the worst neighborhoods in one of the neighborhoods with the highest crime rates, we wanted to make sure that this building didn't resemble that. So they came back with a redesign. They changed the color of the brick and also the color of, the design of the windows. And the reason why this was important was because I kind of lost my words. But this is like a great example to show like the before and after, and when the community has a say and the changes that we can make to the physical spaces of our environment. And these are the rest of the buildings that we need to preserve that are within the rezoning area, which it's still ongoing work. Next is the work with preserving Weeksville. These are images of the buildings when they were rediscovered in the 1960s. These are photographs during the restoration and a photo of Joan Maynard. During 2019, I decided to venture out from architecture and try to move into other areas, especially since I was doing work with preserving East New York. I felt like I wanted to do community work, be within an organization that wanted to preserve Black spaces and continue with the legacy. So I decided to join Weeksville, even if the position was only for grant funded for 1 year. I took on the opportunity because working in Bed-Stuy and working in East New York made me realize how hard it is to preserve Black spaces and to have structures that talk about the history of Black people made me feel that it was a privilege, because we often don't walk within those spaces. We mostly read about them. And even if this position was going to be for 1 year, like I wanted to be part of the legacy of preserving them physically. So these are some of the works that I've done during my time here. Like repairing roofs, repairing the ramp, reinstalling new fences. Other works that I do is I call it the invisible work, which is normally we walk into these spaces, but we don't think about like the cleaning and what goes behind them to maintain them. In 2021, when I joined, it was 2020, and in 2021 we decided to do a deep cleaning of the houses, and it was an exciting point for me because for a long time Weeksville didn't have a preservation manager, so there wasn't someone that was taking care of the house, like someone specifically caring for the houses or advocating or managing their care. So when I took my colleague Tony and I did the deep cleaning of the houses, and when I would see the difference of the before and after, I just had like a deep feeling of like gratitude, appreciation, just knowing that I was there doing the work to ensure that these houses are being preserved for generations to come. And I always remember a time where some students came to visit Weeksville to learn about the behind the scenes of managing and running a museum facility. My former employer told the students, you know, one thing I learned about Zulmilena is that she loves to clean. And I kind of had to stop her right there. I'm like, well, when I arrive at my apartment and I open the door, it's a different story. Maybe I had to figure out how to pay myself. But the thing is that it's like cleaning with a purpose, you know, cleaning a historic space, cleaning a black space, cleaning a black historic building. It's different, and I'm honored to be part of, you know, the legacy and doing the work to preserve the Hunterfly row houses. So thank you.